Hello. Today, with a new edition of Auntie Tina Watch Me Works, we're going to talk about trauma from a 12-year-old. And as an adult, we're going to deep into the mind of how does an adult deal with trauma. But we're going to start at the age of 12, so we're going to go back. Stay with me. It's a good story. I want comments. Let me know how you feel. Also, let me know what topics you want to share or you want me to talk about. So let's start. I will change the names and because we don't want to offend anyone. And the story needs to be told and should be told. 12-year-old little girl decided at some point she wanted to go live with her mom. You know, she was raised by her grandma and often no one but her mom, but more so with her grandmother. And this takes you back in the 80s. And so life was a little different then. But at 12 years old, you know, you had a conversation with your mom. You're like, hey, Mom, you know, I want to move in and, you know, I want to come live with you. And your mom like, okay, let's do it. You know, let your grandmother know what you want to do and, you know, we're going to make it happen. Now, your life with your grandmother you thought was a little shaky. You know, you wasn't a favorite grandchild and, you know, you had some trials and tribulations, but, you know, you just, you know, felt if you go stay with your mom, life will be different for you. So you make the change. So not spring break, it was Christmas break. Christmas break came around and, you know, you felt big and bold and you decided to go to the principal's office and say, hey, my mom, you know, I'm going to stay with my mom. And so I needed to disenroll, you know, you use words, disenroll from school because I'm going to go stay with my mom. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, my mom's trying to come and stay with her, you know, so that, you know, they contacted grandmother and your grandmother was like, oh yeah, let her go. So, you know, during Christmas break, you spent the Christmas with your grandmother and soon after you went to stay with your mom. So you get enrolled into a school, and so, you know, you grew up in a nice neighborhood with your grandmother and not knowing, you know, the struggles and all the trials and tribulations and the hard work that your grandmother put in into making your life great. So she thought, right, you know, she did what she thought as a grandmother. You know, she worked hard, you know, she went to work every day and just to provide for her grandchildren. So, but you didn't understand that at 12. So you know, you like, I want to go stay with my mom, okay? So you go stay with your mom, you get enrolled into a school and, you know, you share a room with your sister and your brother. A little different, you know, but it didn't matter because you was with your mom, right? So life was great. You know, you go to school and you know, you deal with different kind of kids and they didn't understand, like, who are you? You know, you look different, you talk a little different, you know, you like, whatever. So, you know, you try to find your way into school, you know, you try to find your way and just kind of stay quiet, you know, and you start to get picked on by kids and you're trying to figure out, okay, so this is different, right? Because where you come from, you know, you didn't have those issues, right? And so you come into, and, you know, I can say the city schools. So we're going to say, you know, in urban community, right? And they're a little different, right? From the way you were raised and what you were used to. But you had to figure out your way. You go through school, the teachers are a little different. They're not as nice and friendly as, you know, out in the county schools, right? So, but, you know, you tell your mom, like, hey, Mom, you know, these kids are mean. And she's like, oh, it's gonna be okay. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, and so you find yourself in fights, and you know, you're like, God, you know, got to fight at the school today, at the next day, you fight every other day, you know, just to defend, you know, yourself. And you're like, oh, this kind of different, but you know, you just still happy because you're on cloud nine, you're with your mom. And you like, you know, none of this matters, I'm with my mom. So school is over, so let's fast forward. So springtime comes, summer comes, like, and you know, it's the summertime. You're like, yeah, you know, I get to hang out. So we, you know, you start going over to in-laws' house. Your mom, you know, has remarried, and so you know, you start to integrate with, you know, your mom's husband's family. So you know, you go into a little rougher situation, you know, when you go visit, right? So you're, you know, you're 12 years old still, and you know, you're like, okay, this is different, and you find yourself not really doing what you were used to doing. The kids were a little different, right? So let me tell you how it works. The trauma starts here. You hang out in the summertime. You go with your, you know, your cousin, which is your friend, you know, and you know, you go do, you know, what you think is right. Like, so you like really into arcades, right? And you wanna just enjoy, you know, being, you know, with your mom, and you at the arcade, you got a quarter, you know, and put in a machine, and you know, you maybe got 50 cents, right? And you playing all day because you're great at what you do. You know, can nobody get on the game because Miss Pac-Man was your thing, right? So you decide to do that, and one day your cousin, your friend said, hey, you know, we can make some money. And you're like, what, how? You know, more money. You thinking, oh, more money to play the game. This is gonna be great, right? And so yeah, only thing you gotta do is just watch some things, and you know, and they're gonna give us some money. They're gonna give us 75 cents. You like 75 cents, and we're talking about the 80s, right? And so the 80s, you know, 75 cents was a lot of money. That's like 3 games, right? Like 3 different games. So you're gonna be on the arcades all day long, right? So you decide to go, you know, and make the money, and you and your friend, cousin, you know, you go out and you make the money, right? And you watch the cans, you know, for about 4 hours, 2-3 hours, not 4, but 2-3 hours. And so, you know, the person comes back, and you know, they didn't have your money. You're like, oh, I'm like, where's the money? And it was like, and your friend was like, your cousin friend. So I'm just gonna say cousin, right? Your cousin is like, we gotta go over to the house and get it. I'm like, oh, okay. Where they stay? Oh, they stay around the corner. I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, you shouldn't be off the block. Let me just say, you know, your mom said, you know, you stay on the block. If you're not at the arcade around the corner, you're on the block, right? And so you're like, well, I can just run around the corner real quick so you can get your 75 cents, right? And so, you know, she goes around the corner with her cousin, and goes into the house. They knock on the door, and the gentleman comes out, and right. And so, you know, he like, oh, come in, I gotta get the money. And you like, oh, okay. You like, you looking at your cousin like, oh, okay. And this person is supposed to be like a family friend. So, you know, you figure you trust him because it's his family, you know, no different, right? You decide to, you know, waiting and waiting and waiting. You like, okay, I'm about to get in trouble. I need to get home. Okay, we need to leave, but we're gonna get this money. So you telling your cousin, we'll get this money. And she like, yeah, we're gonna get, I got it. He want me to run up, go upstairs real quick. You're like, oh, okay. So you like sit on the couch, and you looking around like, okay, this is, okay, who lives here? Because this is kind of a little junky here. You know what you used to. You ain't used to living and walking around like that, right? And so you sit on the couch, and you know, if you the 12-year-old, you know, she's real iffy about, you know, sitting on things because she has a little OCD, right? And so she sits down, and so she's sitting, and she's been there probably, I guess, 20-25 minutes, and your cousin hadn't come back, and you're like, okay, I'm about to get in trouble, right? This is, I'm for sure about to get a whooping when I get home, right? And so you go upstairs, you know, you mosey on up the stairs where she went to, right? With the family friend, and you see them in a compromising position. You're like, ooh. okay, I don't, okay. And so then you try to creep back downstairs and they see you, of course, right? And so and you're like, come here. And so you're like, oh, no, I'm good. Yep, nope. But, you go and it's like, come here. And you're like, okay, all right. You got my money? I need my 75 cents. I need to go. And so they're like, no, we got to do something. And so you like, huh? And your cousin like, it's gonna be okay, he gonna give us our money. I'm like, what do you mean? And so he like, come over here. You ain't leaving nowhere. And if you tell, I'm gonna kill you. I'm like, who? You? Like, Doc? Okay, I don't want to do that. And so, you get in a compromising position. He have you, you lay down and, he tried to do his thing, right? And so, it didn't work out too good for you, right? Because you didn't know anything about that kind of situation, right? And you look at your cousin, you start crying. You look at your cousin, you're like, okay, I need to go home, get a whooping, I'm just in trouble. And so, needless to say, let me just say, the 12-year-old never received her 75 cents, okay? Never got it. What she did get was some baby dolls that were used, and she was confused because first and foremost, she's gonna get a whooping, okay? She's in trouble, let's just say that. And you get baby dolls that she does not play with, okay? And she didn't get her 75 cents, so she's violated. Basically, you took advantage because she didn't get her 75 cents and you gave her something she did not want. And so in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, I need to go tell my mama, but if I tell my mom, he said he's gonna kill me. But I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what to do. And you're talking to your cousin on the way home, and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting in trouble. And she's like, don't say a word. Oh my God, don't say a word. We're gonna be in big trouble. Don't say a word. Okay. You new to the area. You don't know no better. You feel like, yeah, I'm gonna be in real trouble. But you go in the house, you're like, you ain't never been the one to tell stories to your mom. So, your mom like, where you at? And you like, mama, we went over, Mr. House, and he did something to me that I don't think he's supposed to do. She was silent. What? She finally said, what? What? And you like, yes, ma'am. We washed in cans, and we did, we was watching this stuff, and we supposed to get our money, and, cousin told us to go around and get the money, and, we supposed to have 75 cents. The only thing you paid was the baby down. You showed the baby down. She's like, what? So immediately, she just lost it, right? So she called the police. And you was a 12-year-old, like, oh, okay. So I guess it was wrong, and a 12-year-old. So in the mind of a 12-year-old, what are they thinking? And she's like, well, I did the right thing then, because my mom would go fit and get him. And I'm going to maybe get my 75 cents, right? So she's like, okay, the 75 cents is coming. Well, the police came. So the 12-year-old and the mom, had to go down to the police station, right? And with the cousin. And so the cousin's mom, so they got to the police station, and so you sitting there, with the police, and she thinking, well, okay, well, what are we doing now? I say, like, oh, we need statements. So the girl, 12-year-old, like, a statement, what does that mean? I'm like, we need to tell you exactly, tell us exactly what happened. And the 12-year-old is like, okay. Oh, and so we went around, my cousin told me to, we got a job for 75 cents. And the 12-year-old stating, hey, I thought I was going to play the game for, because it was a quarter apiece. And the police was like, oh, okay. So can you identify the person? You're like, what does that mean, identify the person? And they're like, oh, we want to show you the person, and so you can just tell us, is that the right person? You're like, oh, okay. And so, you go with your mom, and they take you back to like some jails, right? And so the 12-year-old was like, okay, people in jail? Okay. And so they got this guy, the man is sitting there in jail. He looks so sad. He's like, oh God. And so they said, this is the person? I'm like, yeah, that's him. And I said, so, sir, but I don't know if he made my cousin do anything, because she went up there with him. But he made me. And the police like, what? And my mom was like, be quiet. Keep your mouth closed. She don't say a word. You're like, oh, okay. And so you think you're going home, you think you're gonna get your 75 cents, but for the 12-year-old, that didn't happen for her, right? For the 12-year-old, they took her to another location. And you're like, what? They took her to juvenile, which she later found out was juvenile, right? And she like, well, what is this? And they say, well, this is where you gotta go because you took money from the man, and you like, I didn't give no money. He gave us a baby doll, I don't know. And you 12-year-old like, I don't play with baby dolls. So what do you mean? It was like, well, this is where you gotta be because you was a bad person. And so the 12-year-old look at their mom like, Mom, what I do? I didn't do nothing wrong. I told the truth, right? And the 12-year-old and the cousin goes. So they make them take, go. They put them behind bars, and they, have to do checkups and things that they have to do. Apparently, and when you go to juvenile, so you got to see the doctor, and take off your clothes, and your mama leaves you. Now, for a 12-year-old that was raised by a grandmother who never got in trouble, and now dealing with something that she know nothing about, and nobody could explain to her because now she's trying to figure out, did she get in trouble and what did she do wrong? Because she don't know. And so the cousin says, you should have never said nothing. See, now you got both of us in trouble because you opened your mouth and you wouldn't have been in trouble and I wouldn't have been in trouble. You just could have said we was going looking for some stuff. I'm like, well, I ain't supposed to tell the story to my mama. You sit in juvenile for seemed like eternity, right? The 12-year-old sitting there, and and she had to take showers with people she didn't know and naked, and you like, oh God, and you, as a 12-year-old, just imagine, scared to death. Never put in a situation you go to bed and they close the door and it's bars. You're just there, just you. And you should have the time to think, but what does a 12-year-old think about? Did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? But then the next day comes and the cousin goes home. Yeah, she goes home. But you're still there another day. And you cry like, why? Why can I go home? What did I do? Why does she get to go home and I don't get to go home? And the 12-year-old sat there and just cried, and the people are like, what you crying for, little girl? What you crying for? What you do? And you like, I don't know. So what seemed like eternity probably was 2 or 3 days that you sat in juvenile, and your mom finally come and get you. And your mom won't even talk to you. You don't know why your mother won't talk to you. But you make it home, and your aunt is there, your cousin's mom is there, and she looked real upset with you, and you don't know why. But maybe because of the situation, but you don't know, right? So you can only assume why she was so frustrated with you. What happens next? What happens next? You have to tune in next week for part 2 of trauma from a 12-year-old. Until then, this is Auntie Tina. Watch me work.